Right, good afternoon everyone. We'll make a start. Right. Item 1, membership of the committee. Could we start with Councillor McGuinn there? Are we all present?
Conservative group was planned.
Sorry.
Just one substitution, I think, Councillor Monroe.
Yes, sorry, for Gemma Wilson.
Right, item 2, minutes of previous meeting. Somebody prepared to move them? Yes, moved and seconded. All in favour, please show. Thank you. Interest and lobbying. We'll start with Councillor.
None to declare, Chairman.
I'm just not sure because the application number 17 on the Upper Thong one, of course, I was involved in that at Planning Commission, so.
That's just an item.
Yeah, so I've no need to declare an interest. Okay, thank you.
Item 17, I'm a member of Owen Valley Parish Council, but don't take any part in their planning.
Councillor Sokol.
None, Chair.
None.
Yeah, application 94133, page 79, the Quest. I've been lobbied by the applicant and visited the site, and I'd referred the item to the planning committee, but I didn't take any other action.
Councillor Griffiths.
None. Pages 31 to 46 and 10 Quarry Court. I did have a conversation with the neighbours after the previous planning committee and also the ward member, but no advice or action taken. And then the same as what James said for 79 to 88 pages. Again, went to see the site with James and we referred it to committee.
Thank you, Councillor Monroe.
Yeah, I just want to say in item 13, planning application 2018-93326, I have been lobbied on that by my fellow ward councillors. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 6, deputations and petitions.
You've got one?
None.
No, have you got an interest?
No. Oh, sorry, you see what you mean, we're finishing up the other, yeah. Public question time. Go on to the item. It's a site visit, but we're going now to item 10, local planning authority appeals.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Teresa Harlow, Development Control Team Leader. There are 2 appeals to report. Both were officer decisions and both were dismissed, and the inspector's decision letters are appended to the item. Thank you, Chair.
And item 11.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. My name is Nia Thomas. I have undertaken an analysis of the success of appeal decisions in the Huddersfield area of the district. So, as you can see from the pie chart here, 90% of the total 42 planning appeals were dismissed. So this is the dismissed appeals, and the blue shows the upheld. So this includes member and officer decisions. Of the 8 decisions made by members of this committee, 75% were dismissed. Of the committee decisions that were upheld by the Planning Inspectorate, both were contrary to officer recommendation. And then finally, in terms of Kirklees as a whole, the number of appeals dismissed within the district is above the national average for non-major applications. Thank you, Chair.
Right, we move on then to item 12, planning applications, page 31, 10 Quarry Court, Longwood.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. My name is Callum Harrison and I am the planning officer responsible for this case at 10 Quarry Court. This application was deferred from the previous subcommittee on the 24th of January in order for the officers to seek further amendments. Members visited the site originally on the 24th of January and then earlier today. Here are a few photographs of the site. That's the layout, as you'll be aware, when we visited earlier, with 8 to the west and 12 to the east. Again, that's showing the relationship with 12, with the extension continuing down that side. From the rear, over towards number 8, and from the highway. So the application relates to a single-storey side and rear extension in a wraparound formation. As stated at the previous hearing, the extension will be on the south, east side and southwest facing rear elevations. This would also see the patio area around the extension raised. The extensions shall form additional living space in the form of a kitchen and dining room. The materials proposed are to match the house dwelling exactly, with its stone and UPVC and concrete roof tiles. Following the previous committee, there's been a number of amendments to the scheme. This essentially seen the rear elevation squared off. As you'll recall, the first time it was facing somewhat towards number 8 Quarry Court. Now it is facing out into the valley. This will project 1.5 metres away from the existing rear elevation, whereas before it was 1.1 metres to the west side and 3.1 to the east side. Roof lights on the side extension have been obscurely glazed. A construction summary has been submitted by the agent. Glazing has been removed from the west side of the rear extension, which previously faced towards number 8. And a further proposed condition has been added to remove permit development rights for extensions, alterations to the roof, porches, raised platforms, outbuildings and additional windows. These amendments, in officers' opinion, mitigate any potential issues regarding the residential amenity of the neighbouring houses. Therefore, it can be stated that the proposed scheme would not have any notable impact on numbers 8 or 12 Quarry Court in regards to overbearingness, overshadowing and privacy. Thank you, Chair.
We have Susie Hallowell.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Following the committee meeting of 24th of January, the agent submitted a basic construction summary. With reference to this, I stand by my original statement. I do not believe this proposal can be safely implemented within the applicant's own personage. My reservations regarding the extreme close proximity of excavation alongside the hard standing and built form of my land remains of paramount concern. I specifically witnessed potential contractors clearly informing the applicant that this proposal would lead to the loss of my land and property, as well as requiring my right for access onto Saturday. Distances continue to be a discrepancy. A site visit confirmed the distance to be just 80 centimetres from the boundary and less than 1 metre from my actual garage. Safety measures were put in place when my garage was originally constructed, requiring the foundations to be built upon a 3-foot rastered concrete platform. Excavation at such extreme proximity to this platform could have a profound detrimental effect upon its future stability. In addition, this extension will be directly over an accessible manual inspection chamber and shared drains. Extra weight of new building near or over this chamber may even cause the facility to collapse. Could the positioning of this ironwork affirm perhaps that this property was not designed to have additional building in this area, and perhaps that's why its location isn't shown on the plans? I believe that the full potential of this plot has already been realised. This proposal won't extend that potential in relation to the needs of the growing family. It's basically an extended wraparound kitchen on a house that only even granted an NHB certificate at the time. Despite my concerns being classified as non-planning matters, surely the heart of planning is to balance policy alongside implementation, thus providing harmony to a neighbourhood. It just feels totally unjust that in order to protect our home, we are advised to seek private legal representation, especially as it isn't our extension. Being the middle of three properties of the same design, number 10 already represents a cramped and overdevelopment of this small plot, with the extension being out of scale with the existing neighbouring design. And this is highlighted with a patio raised to a higher level.
30 seconds.
Chair, members, if you have any doubt whether this proposal could be safely achieved without causing detriment or harm to the adjacent property, I kindly request you to consider a refusal. Thank you.
Michael Pennywell.
A very good afternoon to everybody, and thank you for this opportunity to continue my objection to the planning application and its amendments. At the Planning Committee meeting on the 24th of January, observational comments were made by certain councillors that the proposed extension to number 10 Quarry Court was far too large a structure for such a small domestic housing plot. And I would ask the committee as a whole this time to consider these comments and the rationale of building this extension in such a restrictive place. In my opinion, it is an overextension of a dwelling that already occupies the majority of its allocated plot, and the construction of this extension would give the appearance of a cramped dwelling and grounds with little outside recreation area in which to entertain or to play. Such an extension would detract from the original construction of Quarry Court, when the three dwellings, number 8, 10 and 12, were all of uniform construction, being well planned and positioned. This construction would wreck the symmetry of the court, as the extension would be totally out of scale with its surroundings. On a personal note, this side extension to number 10 would face the principal elevation to my property, which is number 12, and would have a significant, oppressive and intrusive impact on my home, with my front door opening to the view of an oversized stone wall only 6 metres away from my doorstep, which is much too close and far too high. Although a construction statement was requested at the recent meeting, the applicant has only provided a summary statement from which it is impossible to judge the feasibility of building such an extension. The lack of a detailed extension is of great concern, as there are several technical and constructional issues that surely should be discussed and resolved before a decision is made to pass or dismiss this application. Should this application continue to be considered, then I suggest that the applicant's proposed building contractor issues a detailed construction statement at the earliest opportunity. In view of the above, and the 5-month period of delay since the original
30 seconds.
was submitted, I request that this application is refused, as there are so many issues that still remain unresolved. Again, thank you for the opportunity to speak, and this time I got it right. Thank you.
Councillor Richard. Sorry, I do apologise, yes. It's Chris Lawson. Yeah, sorry.
Chairman, fellow councillors, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you again. We very much welcome the changes that the committee strongly recommended at the last meeting in January. This included squaring off of the rear part of the extension and the insistence on obscure glazing in the roof lights. Despite these changes, we still feel that this extension on balance still represents an overdevelopment due to the cramped and enclosed nature of the plot. I believe the phrase trying to pour a quart into a pint pot was the initial reaction on seeing these plans. Visually, the new gable, which covers the proposed extension plus the existing kitchen, appears large and overbearing in comparison to the host property and the plot. Mr. Chairman, we find that there are yet further discrepancies within the latest plans. Plan 103 shows the newly raised patio extending for less than half the existing rear elevation, around 8 to 9 metres from number 8. Plan 101 shows the newly raised patio extending for more than half of the existing rear elevation, around 5 metres from number 8. We would object to Plan 101 being accepted. Therefore, the applicant and his agent should be asked to confirm which plan they are submitting for approval as recommended by the officer. The raised patio will also have a drop well in excess of 1 metre to the garden. This will require yet more hard landscaping to make it safe, which is not shown. We don't agree that the brief paragraph supplied as a construction statement is either satisfactory, reasonable or respectful to this committee. We would welcome that the conditioning of a more detailed construction statement be requested and that it be shared with neighbours for consultation. We both fully support the specific issues that number 12 raised regarding this proposed extension and the detrimental effect it will have on their property. We too are concerned about how the proposal can be safely built on this difficult confined spot without adversely affecting the existing buildings and infrastructure. Approving this application will place excessive responsibility on building control to ensure that construction is both legal and safe. For all the above reasons, we respectfully request that the proposed extension is...
30 seconds.
If the proposed extension is passed, then we would like assurances that the 7 conditions listed will be both levied and enforced. We would also ask that clarification that the raised platforms referred to in condition 5 includes future alterations to the patio. Thank you for listening.
Councillor Richard.
Good afternoon, Chair and Councillors. As you know, each weekend we get the plans that have been submitted. And I always have a quick look through, see what there is. Oh, trees, etc. I think Callum will stand by the fact that as soon as I got the original plans for this, he had an email that said overdevelopment, because the first plan that this was for was a 2-storey extension with a new bedroom upstairs and so on. And this is probably about the 5th or so version, I'm getting a nod from over here, of trying to get something that is not a complete overdevelopment of the area. I think it's not the easiest things to do. And I still have certain concerns. I love the precondition about no further planning, no further construction after this, because I think this is absolutely the end that you could push it to. But I'm also concerned with the width of the land between these 3 properties, that a solid construction plan is needed before anything is built. Because without that, I think there could be a lot of problems. So, can I actually ask you to think seriously about getting a good construction plan in place before this starts? This area, well, you've seen it today, it's like being built on the side of a hill, isn't it? Or should I say a cliff? And it's not the easiest place to be able to extend from. So my basic plea is, please think carefully about this as a construction site and what is acceptable and what isn't. Thank you.
Thank you.
One more speaker, and that's Matthew Jack, who's speaking on behalf of the applicant.
Okay. Just to comment on where we've come from in the last committee, we've obviously drastically improved the scheme. I think we've done what has been asked of us. I think we've obviously reduced the extension, how far it extends. We've angled the extension away from number 8. We've omitted the side window facing number 8 and obscured any roof light. So we've mitigated any overbearingness or overlooking. We've also confirmed to Callum that the patio will only be 250mm from the playroom door, so it won't go anywhere past the playroom door. The only kind of remaining query really is to do with the construction strategy, and my client is more than happy to do that as a pre-commencement condition, if you feel that it's acceptable. Obviously, there'll be a structural engineer we'll have appointed who will do a proper structural engineer design with foundations, which will be submitted to the party wall surveyor, which will be impartial. So I would argue that the objections that the neighbours are raising are not really a planning issue, and it should be really covered under building regulations and by the party wall surveyor. The other issues regarding proximity to number 10, I think we've said it's a metre away. There's some question whether it's 8 centimetres or a metre. We're saying it's a metre. Even if it was 8 centimetres, it's a very simple extension, and it's a single storey, simple extension. We've spoke to contractors. We know we can get scaffolding up there. It's really not an issue. We don't even need scaffolding to the side. We can have a trestle platform instead. In terms of drainage, again, that will be done by a civil engineer, and we can get that sent over to Yorkshire Water if needed, if it's an adopted drain. Again, not really a planning issue. So in summary, I think we've reduced the scheme quite dramatically from what it was 5 months ago. We've taken a storey off it. We've taken it back to the line of garage. Since the last meeting,
30 seconds.
We've taken the steps as required by the committee, and we hope that the committee agrees with the plan officer in this case. Thank you.
Councillor Lawler.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can I just have two...
Councillor Bellamy, can you... the mic.
Sorry, can I just have 2 points of clarity? Firstly, the construction statement that's been raised by a number of objectors, and the raised patio that was raised. Callum, can you just give us a bit of clarity on that, please?
Yeah, so essentially the comments from the neighbours in regard to this was the discrepancies between this plan as shown on the screen and the one straight on. So this would somewhat show the patio extending in front of those doors, whereas this one, it's of an angle, so it's quite difficult to tell. So they're the two what were being referred to by the comments. We've clarified with the agent that the patio will be rated 25 centimetres to this side of this playroom door as original. So in essence, the patio will be 7 metres away from number 8.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, just the other matter that was raised in terms of the construction summary. I draw members' attention to page 44 of the report, where we've actually done a response to this. And what we have to impress is that planning can only control matters under planning legislation, and we can't control matters under other legislation, such as the Party Wall Act, building regulations, or health and safety construction regulations either. So it wouldn't be possible for us to enforce anything that was actually legislation under some other act or order. So in terms of a construction management plan, that wouldn't go into the level of detail that members are requesting, because it isn't planning legislation. Construction management plan would more likely be where contractors might park, the hours of use that contractors might erect the extension. That doesn't mean that all those other parts of legislation would have to be complied with. It just, we wouldn't be the enforcing body of that or for that. Thank you, Chair.
Any further submissions?
Can I just ask a question about the
percentage of land which was being built on after if this is constructed, and would that be within the guidelines set by the local authority?
Thank you, Chair. I did have a look on our GIS mapping system about how much of the land will be built on through the property, not including the patio, and it'd be approximately a third of the plot. So that is including towards the front where you've got the driveway as well. But as the plot as a whole, it's approximately a third, which works out the same as number 8 as well, which is approximately a third again.
Yes, I'll bring the officer in here.
Just to clarify, the council at the moment is producing a design guide which may talk about what overdevelopment means in Kirklees, but it's a matter for you as decision makers. There isn't a specific measurement that says when something is or isn't overdevelopment as defined by our current policy position. It's a judgment for you as decision makers based on the plans and your site visits and your experience.
If there are no more questions, Councillor Homewood.
Yeah, it was just listening to what the officer said about the construction thing. I agree with that. But presumably some of that legislation is overseen by other departments within the council. Would that be correct? And is there somewhere that, I'm not saying as part of the planning, but separate to that some assurances can be given to people who live there to say, look, this isn't part of the planning actions or enforcement, but we can make sure that we've made clear the concerns to the relevant departments so they can be aware ahead of time. Maybe they are already, but you know, we do have some responsibilities as a council to make sure these things happen correctly, and appreciate it's not necessarily as part of the planning decision.
Can I just come in? The person who's speaking on behalf of the applicant suggested that the council might be able to put on a pre-commencement condition relating to these matters, such as a structural survey, all those kind of things. Well, the council can't do that because that's not part of our remit. But the objectors have heard that that is the intention of the people next door, so they might want to ask to have sight of that survey. And I can't remember what else he suggested, but he was talking about scaffolds not necessary. But as the point I want to make is that the council can't put the pre-commencement condition on which the applicant offered.
Councillor Sims.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I thought building control would be the people that check all the foundations, they check the drains, etc. Of any plan that comes in. And I don't think they'll pass anything that's not fit for purpose. That's their job, so they'll be taking that all in hand. I just think that they've now gone a long way to satisfying what we talked about last time. Next door there's a large conservatory extension that stands up and what have you, which is a third. And I know it's not set in stone, but a rule of thumb's always been a third. Well, I've been on this committee for a long time. So I move officer's decision, Chair.
Is that seconded? Seconded, Councillor.
Yeah, can I just second? I mean, I think it's really difficult because there is a mix of building regs, as Ken said, and legislation that is outside of the council's control. And the applicants have come to sort of some compromise in terms of squaring part of the elevation off. It was 1.58 metres away, it's now 1.1. The roof light, the glazing, the overbearing, I think some of that has been addressed. I would ask, not request, but ask the applicant if they can try and provide this survey and work with the neighbours as best they can, because I think it was suggested by the architect. Happy to second this.
Yeah, I personally, and from a planning point of view, I don't agree with this extension at all. I think it's overbuilt. It is, as was said, a pint in a quart pot, definitely, and it's going to spoil the whole look up there. If they go much further, they'll be over the edge and down onto the road. But That's certainly my... sorry, I said it the wrong way around. You can quote me right, but that's all right. No, it's... I don't know how they've got away with building them in the first place. They've squeezed them in that tight. So that's my opinion. Right. It moved and seconded that this be approved. All those in favour, please show. Against?
Application's approved.
Right, page 47. And it's Corby, Birkby Road, Birkby.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Nicholas, Case Officer. This application seeks the demolition of one dwelling and the erection of 5. The dwelling to be demolished, Corby, is a large dwelling in spacious grounds, and I will just zoom in here, as I appreciate on-site members just want a bit of clarification on the layout. So we entered through the front there, went around the side. Okay, I was getting the lights turned off now, for you. So this shows the front elevation of Corby, and just a selection of images around the back just to show the existing arrangement. This is a proposed layout. Two units would front onto Birkby Road. 4 would be served by a private drive from Birkby Road running through the centre. So Unit 1 would be served by Birkby Road by a new private drive with on-street turning. Each of the proposed dwellings have a unique design, although they share common features and have a coherent appearance. This is plot 4, just as a typical example. The site is not level, being lower than the land to the west and higher to the east. And again, just a typical example. So here's number 46 from Inglewood Avenue on the west hand side. The report before members outlines officers' full assessment of the proposal. In brief, the land is unallocated and increased densities of dwellings is welcomed via policy and the principle of development is considered acceptable. Turning to design and layout, while the site is adjacent to the Edgerton Conservation Area, which does form this boundary to the west and south, the units are considered attractive and harmonise with the established character of the area. As a note on density, policy PLP 7 establishes a target density of 35 dwellings per hectare where appropriate. By that standard, this site would look to accommodate 12, but that would not be appropriate given the surrounding environment. However, on balance, officers do support the 5 proposed. Regarding the amenity of neighbouring residents, officers consider the separation distances and level difference of the site. Considering the separation distances and the level differences, officers raise no concerns and highways have raised no objections. A culvert crosses the site. This is to be repositioned and improved as the existing culvert is in a dilapidated state. Surface water is to be attenuated and be discharged into the culvert. Based on the submit plans, officers therefore recommend approval with nothing further to add, Chair.
We have Christopher Harden, who's objecting.
Good afternoon. I wish to object to this application for the following reasons. One, it's an overdevelopment of the site. They wanted 6 houses where there is 1 house. They have reduced this marginally to 5. The report says that there could be 12 houses on the plot of that size. This is irrelevant to this application and in fact misleading. A development should be in keeping with the neighbourhood and local characteristics. The adjacent houses on Inglewood Avenue have a lower building density, so any new houses should be in keeping with these. Previous refusal. Previous applications for 1 additional house have been refused and appeals upheld because it would exacerbate existing flooding problems along Grimescott Dyke, detract from the privacy of adjoining residents and would be detrimental to the interests of highway safety. These reasons for refusal still exist but have been glossed over or ignored and removed from the portal. Flooding. The report says that the Flood Authority have expressed concerns due to flood risk, but on balance do not object to the proposal. According to 2 reports from Kirklees Flood Management on the portal, this is simply not true. Both clearly object to the plans. There are no new reports contradicting this. Their recommendation for alleviating the flood risk to the neighbouring property to the east and the proposed property to the south-east corner of the plot is to redesign the culvert, incorporating improvement works in third-party land. It also says that just renewing the culvert will not eliminate the risk. The update reports that the owner of 18 Inglewood Avenue does not want to have their garden dug up, and who can blame them? So the local lead flood authority now says that the plans are okay, whereas they have previously said that just renewing the culvert is not enough. Why the change of mind? Where is the new evidence to support it? Ecological impact. The ecological appraisal submitted by the applicant states that the development is for just 4 houses. This may be a mistake, or it may be that the author of the report was told that there were to be 4 houses, which would potentially reduce the ecological impact on the site. The biodiversity officer in their response asks for more information, in particular concerning bats. Again, there is a lack of transparency and this has not been published on the portal if such a report
30
exists.
seconds.
It would appear that the committee is being asked to make a decision to approve without the evidence and then officers will sort out the detail with 15 separate conditions. This should not have come to the committee with so many unanswered questions. There is a need for reports from the relevant officers regarding drainage and the ecological impact before any decision is made. I would respectfully suggest this application is refused or at the very least deferred until all of the information is available and published.
Thank you.
We have Dan Hennigan, who's speaking on behalf of the applicant.
Good afternoon, members. My name is Dan Hennigan from Fadder-Bamforth Associates, and we are the agent for the application. The application before you seeks to create 5 new family homes on partly brownfield land, which is designated as unallocated in the newly adopted local plan. The site has been designed to fit in with the established urban grain of the area. The dwellings are in keeping with Inglewood Avenue and Birkby Road, both of which host large dwellings of varied designs. We initially proposed 6 dwellings. However, through negotiations with the planning authority, this number has been reduced to 5. The standards set by PDLP do not suggest that this is an overdevelopment, and the MPPS states that developments are to make optimal use of the potential of each site. Each dwelling benefits from an individual design, and we are proposing to construct the dwellings with natural stone. The dwellings are 2-storey in appearance with rooms in the roof space. They are considerably lower in height than the existing dwelling which they replace. The roadside plots are to be positioned set back from Birkby Road to reduce the impact on the road frontage. The position and orientation of the plots within the site, when assessed with the separating distances and level differences between the neighbouring plots, means that the proposals would not be harmful to amenity or of the existing residents or future occupiers of the house. The proposal meets the requirements for parking standards, and Kirklees Highways are satisfied that the increase in traffic movements will not have an adverse effect on the local highway network. We have worked closely with Kirklees' drainage team and have come up with a proposal that is acceptable without any work on third-party land. The existing culvert on our site will be relocated and upgraded to reduce any flood risk. The applicant has also met with the owner of number 18 Inglewood Avenue to discuss any flood concerns they have and possible improvements to their culvert. They've requested that we avoid any work on their land, and we will continue with the on-site solution. We have worked very closely with the planning officer to incorporate various amendments in order to accommodate many of the concerns raised by objectors and consultees. These are responded to in the officer's report. In conclusion, we have no problems with any of the conditions proposed in the officer's report and would request that members support the application. Thank you.
Members. Mr. Ruppel.
Thank you, Chair. I think when I visited the site, I thought it was too much, to tell you the truth, 5 houses, having looked at the garden area. So I wouldn't be keen on 5. I'd potentially be happy to look at 4, but 5 was a bit too much for me. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
Councillor Sokol.
Yes, Chair. I've been on the site visit. I look around the site, the back garden or frontage. Yeah, I accept there is a large garden on the back, on the rear, on the front. I'm not actually against the application, but I've got some concern about the number of properties and the closeness of the already the few houses on the back. Yeah, I think, Mr. Chairman, the 5 houses are still a bit too many. The reason is because these are not small houses, very big houses, 5 bedroom each, I believe that. And if you look on the other side on the bottom, already houses on the back, yeah, I think it looks like only 3 or 4 bedroom. It should be matching with those, yeah. And one of the unit, I think, which is on the right on the corner, is very close to the back garden of another house, which is not acceptable. Yeah. Again, the applicant already has removed so many trees on the back. Some of them, it seemed to me, there were trunks still there. It seemed to be must be big trees. About a couple of years ago, I think 2-3 years ago, I had a tree which was leaning over. I got my witness here, and when I asked the officer to look at, I wanted to remove it, the tree. The officer told me, well, I know it's no TPO on this tree, but it's still conservation area. You have to apply for the planning permission to remove. So I had to do that. But now this area is the same adjacent area, which is conservation. Why the applicant have been allowed to remove all these trees without any planning permission? I accept there is no TPO, but it's a conservation area. So that's totally wrong. Yeah. So I'll leave it to the members what they think about. Thank you.
Councillor.
Yeah, in principle, I'm not against it. I'm just, you know, the concerns that my colleagues highlighted. The 2 at the front, fine. The 3 at the back, I think it's a bit too much, and I'm happy to support Harpreet's. I think that 5 is a bit too much, if I'm being honest. I think if it was 1 less, then I think it'd be a bit better.
No further. I'll just add something then. What a contrast to the last one. I mean, you look at the size. I know it's a different type of house, but my goodness me, this place is massive. It really is, and I do believe 5 wouldn't be a problem. It would not be a problem when you've got 12 next door, 12 flats. But yes, I know they are. I know, but they haven't got the land. They haven't got the land. But that's. I don't personally do not see what the problem is there. Somebody prepared to Move. You're moving. Is that? You're moving, supporting the officer.
I think we should be refusal or deferral maybe. Can we go back to them and ask about 4 rather than 5?
Sorry, Councilman.
Sorry, I didn't know why I'd been missed, but anyway, I just wanted to say, you know, after being on the site visit this morning and seeing it from the other side, I think that alerted me to the fact that those houses who are at the back of the property, I don't think it's right for them to be looking out on 3 houses that they will see from their back gardens. And I don't think that plan fits into the basic arrangement of the houses in that area at all well. It doesn't sit well with me at all. And I think that it's too many houses. I'm sorry, that's my view.
Well, nobody's entitled to a view, you do know that. Right, well, it looks as though we're getting a bit of activity now. Yes, Councillor Bellamy.
Thank you, Chair. To me, it's too many houses. The road behind is way too close. It's going to overlook, and I'm happy to move refusal.
Seconded. You're happy to go to vote now? Okay. Too many houses.
What I'm saying is, I'd be happy to look at 4 rather than 5, so I don't want to just be like totally against this. I don't know, I was perhaps suggesting, I don't even know, I'll take advice from yourselves, but I was perhaps suggesting, could we go back to them and look at 4 rather than 5?
So you're asking for a deferral?
I've got to move in a second now for refusal. Unless they're prepared to withdraw. I'm easy. You're prepared to withdraw the refusal? Proposer and the seconder? Yes? And go for deferral? Deferral. Councillor Upple's moved deferment. Is that seconded? That's second. Yes. Yes. All those in favour of deferment?
Can I just clarify then, it's deferred and members are asking officers to go back regarding 4 dwellings rather than 5 on the site. Chair. Sorry, Councillor. 4 or less. Okay.
No, just I want to add something else, yeah? Now, all the trees have gone there now. Can we ask for condition on the replanting the trees, yeah?
If they've not got TPOs on them, we can't do anything.
It doesn't matter, it's an area, it's a conservation area, yeah, I think.
Councillor Sokol, page 58 is a response about the trees. Page 58 of the officer's report, the trees are mentioned there.
If the officers is there, you've accepted deferral, I think we should move on. We're getting bogged down now. So I'm moving on now to page 65, which is 215 Birkby Road, Birkby.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks the erection of a 2-storey side extension and single-storey front and rear extensions with dormers on the roof. The application was first brought to the previous committee on the 24th of January, where officers recommend refusal on the grounds of incongruous design and harm to the amenity of neighbouring residents. Members resolved to defer the application to allow for further discussions on design. So just as a reminder, this is the front elevation of the property. So I'll go back to this plan as well then. So this is on Birkby Road. There's a front elevation, and they're fronting onto Birkby Road. So this is what was deferred last time, and there was concerns over the design of it being incongruous and the impact on the neighbours to the rear. Following amendments, the scheme has been amended as such. Amendments include, but are not limited to, the removal of the front canopy, reduction in the projection of the side extension by ½ metre and realignment of the roof. The materials are uniform as brick, and reducing the first floor rear extension to 1.5 metres. Based on these amended plans, officers are satisfied that the applications overcome our previous concerns on design and the impact on neighbouring residents. Officers therefore now recommend approval. Nothing further to our chair.
Yeah, we have some speakers, please. Michael Chow, who is the agent speaking on behalf of the applicant.
Chair, members, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Following the previous subcommittee meeting, the scheme was deferred to allow all parties to negotiate a halfway house solution. We'd like to thank the planners, Ms. Emma Thompson and Ms. Sam Jackman, for taking quality time out to discuss with the applicant and ourselves in reaching a compromise solution. Obviously, the updated and compromise scheme is not ideal, but however, it does work with our client's requirement. The scale, design, materials, privacy distances, etc. now all meets with the local and national planning policies, and we now seek obviously the member support for the planner's recommendation for approval. The applicant is unable to attend, however he has asked me to read.
Just wait 1 second please. So you're now reading out
Yeah.
the statement on behalf of the applicant, so we just need to reset the clock.
Okay. From the owner. Thank you for inviting us back. Last time we were here, we were asked to negotiate on 3 aspects raised as concern by planning: materials, roof and scale. We have reached agreement on all 3 of these with planning officer's support. Materials, as you can see, we have moved to all bricks as requested and will endeavour to get a close match to the existing bricks as possible, given that these are no longer manufactured anymore, and hence why our previous submission we chose part render. Roof, as agreed, we have the roof now running through straight as requested. Scale, we have reduced the scale on all sides by 1/3, which is a significant reduction. The scale left is minimum needed to meet our needs before the scheme becomes unviable for us. Given these changes and the planner now supporting the proposal, I hope this committee provides us approval to proceed so we can start building our home as soon as possible. Thank you.
Members, a brief one, surely. Councillor Sokol.
Mr. Chairman, we all know this application was discussed last time and deferred, yeah? Because there was some concern about the size of the extension and other thing. I believe applicant and agent have listened to the advice of planning officer and submitted an amended scheme with much reduced in scale and more keeping I'm keeping in touch with the area. Majority of neighbors, I believe, who objected to the original scheme, I read the report anyway, I have not spoken to whom objected, are well pleased and satisfied with the amended plan because there are not many objections now. Ward councillors are in support of these amended plans. So I read in the report, any windows above the ground level will be frosted, so there won't be any overlooking into the neighbors. Applicant has presented a road safety audit, and this is acceptable to the highways as well. So I'm happy to move the officer recommendation to approve the application.
Yes, Councillor.
Yeah, just very, very briefly. I think when this came to committee last time, it was a tad big. I think there has been a reduction in scale. Agree with what Mohan says. I think it's upkeeping with the area. Reduction in scale. Happy to second the officer recommendation for approval.
Yeah, I can't see that there's any point for further debate. If everybody, we've been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Right, page 79, which is 8 The Crest, Bradley.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon again. As stated before, I'm Callum Harrison. I'm responsible for this application at 8 The Crest, which is being recommended for refusal by officers. The application seeks retrospective planning permission for a 2-storey side extension and single-storey front and rear extensions. As explained earlier when the members visited the site, the front and rear extensions already had permission granted under a December 2018 approval. So essentially the element up for debate at this committee is the side extension. It has previously been approved at 4 metres maximum height with the eaves at 3 metres. The first scheme was initially similar, however we reduced it down due to its incongruous position on the street scene, particularly as seen from the rear. The overall height proposed at 5.6 metres extends closer to the highway than all the other dwellings in the surrounding area, and the lack of architectural and design details mean it doesn't appear subservient and in keeping with the original dwelling. The proposed usage was originally a garage on the previous application also, but that now involving an issue with the footpath is now being proposed as a store, which is also agreed to by officers. To add to this, the extra height again emphasises the poor architectural details on the extension. It is of officer's judgment if it was a 4 metres as previously approved, the need for architectural detail would be much less and it would appear clearly subservient and more in keeping with the area. And it is also of officer's judgment that if this side extension is contrary to PRP 24 of the Kirklees local plan. So in conclusion, the proposed side extension as it stands and as being assessed today is location within a prominent location and is considered to form an incongruous addition to the host property, which would have a detrimental impact to the visual amenity and character appearance of the local area. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Hussain, who's the applicant?
Thank you, for Chairman and members of the committee, to have me. Yeah, I would like to say with the permission of the extension, we've had an original approval and the footprint of the building is the same that was approved, except for the height, which is me and the planning officers have disagreed on. This has come about regarding the building with the compliance with building control. The minimum height for living accommodation would be a minimum of 2.2 metres. as we ended up with a pitch roof and we needed a storage space, or seeing a space that was going, not being put to good use. So I've been thinking about footprint, having a green footprint, making use of the best space. So with the planning, building control officers, requirement that a minimum 2.2 meters would be required if I was to make that into a living accommodation. So putting 2.2 or 2.2, you get to 4.4. So obviously this is where we have kind of disparity of the height. But then again, I think it's not in Congress with the development. In that estate, if you go around, drive around in that estate, there are several buildings, similar outlooks. There's a couple of buildings that are developed from the main building almost 6 meters out towards the road, towards the main footpath. But this is within proportion, matching stones, surrounding stones, taking consideration of my neighbours, given a good outlook. And so I don't think we've overdeveloped, overbuilt, and it is a single story, but where you sort of stopped at 4 meters, we've ended up probably a meter higher. But then again, I'm pretty proud of the development, and I think my neighbours who opposite and adjacent and across the road have also come across and said the development has been nice, has improved the street. They don't think there's any obstructions or any overdevelopment or impeaches the view of the street. So they are pretty happy, and I think a couple of them have commented and given positive comments for the committee to approve the development as it has been built and as it stands.
20 seconds.
As it stands, as it is. So I hope the committee is satisfied with the picture and the outlook of the building, and I'm glad you all turned out in the weather to have a good look around the development. So I appreciate your time and thank you for that.
Members. Councillor Uppel.
Thank you, Chair. I guess the only thing I want to add to this is it does say on here that it would materially harm the visual character and appearance of the area. That's one of the recommendations for refusal. That's a bit strong for me. Obviously I'm a ward councillor, I've been on site, and see, I don't think it would materially harm the visual character and appearance of the area. I don't quite agree with that. So, I feel like there's no need to refuse this, really, but I'll leave it at that.
Councillor Homewood.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the reason why I referred to the committee was because, just to be clear, and I think it has been said, but the planning permission is already in place for the side extension. The difference is the height of it. So when I'm looking at it, I'm just judging on does a metre make that difference, as Harpreet's saying, from going from being acceptable to being, a blight on the visual amenity of the area, and that's the bit where I'm just not seeing that 1 metre is making that difference. I could understand an argument to say it shouldn't be there at all, because then that, when we're talking about the proximity to the highway and stuff, I could see that, but there's already permission in place for the side extension, so that's my reason for bringing it, that I just think what we're debating here is a metre, and should we be does that make does that difference in size of that side extension make the difference? And that was the bit that where I agree with my colleague that I don't think it's making a material difference, and that's why I brought it here.
Councillor Griffiths. Then Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Whilst I accept that less than a metre isn't a great deal, there is also principle, and we have, as a committee, previously been caught, making a decision which seemed fair at the time, and then we were reminded that it was a precedent next time we had to consider a case, and I think we should be very careful about that, because how many other people might, having been granted planning permission, think, oh well, it's just another 800 mil, we need to watch that as well. Thanks.
Councillor Bellamy and then Councillor Sokol.
Thank you, Chair. I'm agreement with officers here. I think you look at that and it hits you in the face as you sort of come round up that road. It is too high. To be honest, I think the outside extension don't look right, but I realise that obviously there is permission for some of it. I'm happy to move officer's recommendation, to be honest, to refuse. It's too high. It doesn't look right. It's retrospective, and as has been said, if we're going to start setting precedents here, and I don't think we should be doing. So I'll move officer's recommendation to refuse.
That's seconded. I'm not going to take the vote yet, though. I'm still going to give some further. Is somebody, you're prepared to second it, Councillor Griffiths? Councillor Sock.
Yeah. I know the applicant had built this garage without any planning permission, yeah? Which he should have done, get the planning permission. Now, the officer chair is only asking to reduce the height of this building, which is only by 2-3 feet, 1 meter. I don't know, make 3 foot, yeah. I don't see make any difference. You know, the garage will be still there. You know, I don't know what it's only who will suffer is will the applicant will suffer financially. I think it might be too harsh to ask him to.
Just add as a correction here that
yeah,
apparently it's 1.6 metres. It's not a metre.
Yeah. So we need to look into.
Oh, we're talking nearer 5 foot. Anybody else wish to speak? It's been moved and seconded to refuse. All those in favour, please show. Against?
Yeah, just through you, Chair, I think we already have an open file, enforcement file on this one, so we'll write to the applicant post this decision. There is a right of appeal for 12 weeks following the decision against a refusal of Planning Commission. In any case, if an appeal was received in that time, we would hold any other action in abeyance pending the outcome of that appeal. Thank you, Chair.
Right, the next item, page 89, Stanley Mills, Britannia Road, Millsbridge.
Thank you, Chair. My name's Adam Walker. I'm the case officer on this application. The application was deferred by the subcommittee in December last year and members carried out a site visit at that time. The application was deferred at the applicant's request to enable them to address a number of technical issues. The application site is a large mill building on Britannia Road, which you can see just here. It's mainly been in retail use for the past 35 years, but it's now vacant. An unrestricted industrial site to the east, residential to the north and west, and a canal to the south. The application seeks to convert the upper 2 floors of the building into 42 flats. I'll just show you the floor plans. So, top 2 floors of the building converted to 42 flats, 32 1-bed and 10 2-bed. Ground floor would be consolidated retail space, and then in the basement there'd be 8 small light industrial units and some parking space as well. There's also some external alterations proposed as part of the application. For example, enlarging some of the windows, putting Juliet balconies in, putting roller shutter doors in for the light industrial units. The site forms part of a priority employment area allocation in the local plan. This includes, so this is the site, priority employment area includes this adjacent industrial site, land on the opposite side of Britannia Road and land further to the east. Just point out that this area here, which is part of the priority employment area, that's where an application was refused last year by the Strategic Committee, application for housing, and that's discussed in the report at paragraph 10.13. So priority employment areas are safeguarded for continued employment use. Priority employment areas that have been allocated have been assessed as viable sites and are necessary to meet the Council's employment land supply and its ambition to increase jobs growth over the lifetime of the plan. Policy PLP 8 of the local plan sets out the Council's approach to safeguarding employment land and premises in these areas. The policy and its supporting text set out the circumstances when a change of use within a priority employment area can be acceptable. This is set out in the report and in the update, but in summary it includes marketing information, information on the suitability of the premises for continued business and industrial use, and the availability of other premises in the local area. Officers do not consider that the applicant has robustly evidenced all of the relevant matters, and the information provided falls short of what would normally be expected for this scale of development. So for that reason, the application is contrary to policy PLP 8. In addition to this, officers also have significant concerns that the introduction of a residential use on the priority employment area will prejudice its long-term function. There's an established industrial use next door to the east, which is unrestricted in terms of its hours of use and the type or the nature of the industrial uses that could move in there. Residential could conflict with this and could readily conflict with any future redevelopment of the priority employment area as a whole for other employment uses. Whilst not a reason for refusal, the amenity space for the flats as well, as I just point out here, is quite small and is essentially sat next to a parking area where you've got the access for the light industrial units. So in terms of other matters, the applicant has addressed a number of the technical issues. This includes highway issues. The proposal now provides acceptable parking and turning facilities, some improvements. This will be a footway to a section of the site frontage, and there'd also be a pedestrian crossing, which would just be a drop crossing towards the site frontage. And Highways Development Management have confirmed that it's acceptable on balance in highway safety terms. Concerns with noise have been addressed through a suitable glazing scheme, and ecology matters have also been resolved. Nevertheless, the principle of development on the site is considered to be contrary to PLP 8 of the Kirklees local plan, and as such the recommendation is for refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Richards.
I'm looking at the source of my three-piece suites over the years. Yes, the good furniture. This is a lovely site which has already had some residential building done across the road from it, that the people in there have really settled down and enjoy the environment. I would rather see Lindsay's put into multiple use than to lose it, and I think we could be in the area of it not surviving because of the fact that there is tons of industrial area down there which isn't being used now. Did you do a site visit this morning? Well, did you actually notice how much area there was that could be developed for industrial purposes? Yeah, and they haven't been. This is a way of keeping a lovely building in action. Sorry, I'm like an audience.
The people, they address not only here, they address to the members as well.
Basically, what I'm saying is, will you give this a chance to develop further? I think there is easily enough land otherwise that could be put into this as employment priority areas. But I also think that there is a lot to be said for finding some land and a building that can be used for residential purposes. The combination that's being suggested at the moment might not be perfect. If you throw it back again, they may come back with something that bit better again. And think of the land plan. We might be able to save a little bit of land.
We have Andrew and Lindsay.
Good afternoon. Yes, so I now run Lindsay's All Sorts. I've lived in the local area for 40 odd years, and I see buildings around there that look exactly the same run-down state as they did when I was a kid. You know, the only mills that have been developed as housing. You know, the ones that have been developed properly at least. So yeah, you know, during the 90s when we moved there in 1990, there was no money spent on the roof and the windows. The top floor has not been used really for 20 odd years, and it needs money spending on it. And as all the buildings around there, when people rent them as industrial units, they don't get the money spent on them that needs on a building like that. It's a huge building. It needs a lot of money spending on it. It doesn't come from renting out to industry, just purely to industrial units. So I think that the proposal it gives the building an opportunity to come back to life. It does offer me an opportunity to continue trading. It brings more people into the area, which I think is good for all the businesses around. I think Britannia Mills next door it's been a bomb site for all my life, and I think the development of Stanley Mill would make that a bit more of a viable option for investment. We've had problems around there, fly tipping and different problems because of the lack of use of the building, and I think this proposal brings it all back to life. So we as Lindsay's All Sorts, I think we employed at our peak we employed about 18 people. It's been a lot less than that at the moment, and I think this again, it's going to bring more jobs into the building than have been there since it was a working mill. And I do worry that if there's not money spent on it soon, it will become unviable for development, and it'll just become a white elephant. Thank you for listening.
We have Hamish Blaisdell.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. I'm Hamish Blaisdell, the agent for the applicant. Just to clarify something that the officer said, the application site to the north that was refused by the committee was actually an employment allocation. This site is not an employment allocation. This is in a priority employment area. There's a big difference. The priority employment area is a new policy, very similar to the old B4 policy. and it's about protecting and promoting employment land. And paragraph 7.12 of the local plan explains this. It says the council review the suitability of existing employment sites, and I quote, through this exercise, sites have been identified as priority employment areas which provides greater degree of protection to prevent unnecessary changes of use. And it continues, there remains parcels of land within them that remain undeveloped, yet have the potential to contribute towards the current supply of employment land. So the two areas of this policy, one, it provides a greater degree of protection. We've demonstrated that we've adhered to this and we're not impacting on existing employment uses in the area. And it seeks to promote development of parcels of land. Now this site is a parcel of land which has development potential, and through this planning application we can develop this site and bring forward employment uses with the 8 light industrial units. So clearly the proposed development protects and promotes employment uses, which is the aim of the PEA policy. The proposed development provides a mixed-use scheme, making the best use of the building, which would otherwise remain vacant and fall into disrepair. It looks to provide 42 low-cost residential units. It reinstates the retail use that's been the only regulated use in the building for over 20 years, and it provides 8 light industrial units. Should this development not come forward, we need to consider what the alternative uses of the site might be. The building could be demolished and it could be redeveloped with modern employment units, but we're not sure the site is large enough to even get the same amount of employment uses proposed over 2 floors of this building. We're also not sure whether the demolition costs and the new build costs will actually be viable considering the low rent that employment uses bring. The alternative may be that the building remains vacant for long term and falls into disrepair. So in summary, the proposed development reinstates employment use previously in the building. It provides new light industry and has the benefit of bringing the unusable first and second floors back into use. It does not impact on existing employment uses in the area as demonstrated by the reports. I suggest that the proposed development accords with the aims of the priority employment areas, and I would respectfully ask you to approve this planning application. Thank you.
Thank you. At this stage,
We've got one more speaker.
One more speaker. What I was going to do here, first of all, Richard, was to get the senior officer here to respond to that claim.
The UDP's gone, so yes, the previous site, the site across the road, was a historic employment allegation. It was also part of the same emerging, which is now adopted, priority employment area. The Strategic Planning Committee refused that application for housing on the land on the opposite side, on the impact on the priority employment area. So that's the issue at hand that they refused it on, to clarify. Do you want to finish the speakers before we come in? Is that better? On there.
Addressing straight away because
We have Jeremy Chow.
Good afternoon, members. I've had a long association with Lindsay's all sorts as an architect. You've heard from a planning colleague. Third scheme we've done on this mill, first one that the planners have actually seen. We've looked at a variety of uses over the past, and they just didn't stack up given the sort of rents in the area. Since coming across Lindsay's, I bought Sweet, like Councillor Richards did, sort of 20, 30 years ago. Just basically gone downhill. The unused 2 top floors are a millstone for the business in order for it to survive. We see a situation where, like Hamish has said, if we knocked it down, we wouldn't get any more floor space. We've been delayed a little bit with sort of bringing the scheme forward, obviously overtaken by the local plan. But the issue really was to get some funding in. We've got a bank loan, 4.4 million to do this. Had it fully costed, put the figures into the council, we are going to be maintaining the employment, adding to it with the 8 units, and the catalyst for that is the compromise on the residential. It is residential on the other side. We're involved in the Britannia scheme. So from that perspective, yes, it's on the fringe of the PEA. If this scheme doesn't go ahead, I think the mill will just become an eyesore. Lindsay's will fold, and we'll just be in a situation where we've missed a chance. And I'm sort of sorry that the application's come forward sort of late in the plan process. I respect the policy, but my heart tells me that we're protecting and adding to the employment on this site. This is a one-shot pony, really, for you guys, to try and reverse the recommendation, do the right thing. You're going to get a lovely restored mill with a lot of money spent on it. There's over 40% of the budget is actually earmarked for the external works, which will improve the outside. And we've done various schemes for Lindsay's over the years. They haven't proved viable. They've managed to get an investor on board that's going to put some money in, subject to some return from some rented units. And that sort of tipped the balance, really. And really, I'm just pleading to the planning committee to try and do the right thing, get this approved. I know it's contrary to recommendation because it is the right thing for the building. If not, we're going to end up with an eyesore of a site that's going to fall into disrepair. Ashleys have been hanging on with the millstone of the redundant floors and over the years. And, you know, it's the third scheme I've done for this as an architect. I'd like to see something happen with this site, please. So, if, you know, members
30
agree,
seconds.
you know, could I suggest that somebody's bold enough to try and overturn the recommendation, please? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Right, I think I need to declare an interest here. I used to work for Lindsay's, all sorts, quite a long time ago, guaranteed. But my parents are actually, or was, friends with Andrew and Ashley's mum and dad, and quite good friends. So, what position does that put me in? Because I obviously...
Well, you don't work for them any longer.
No,
but
I haven't done for a
But you're saying that you've got that your parents have got a family of a friendship with the owners. I don't think it's not an interest which would require you to leave the room and no longer participate. However, I think perhaps for openness and transparency, you might just want to not participate. You can stay in the room.
Fine. I'll obviously stayed in the room anyway. I won't participate because obviously we family friends. Okay.
Members, Councillor Socko, then Councillor Griffiths and then Councillor Homewood.
Chair, when we had a site visit last time, I think Councillor Richard didn't know, on the couple of meetings before we had a site meeting there, and all the members that time concerned about the state of the building which is a very historic building in the area, yeah. And there was a concern, member were actually not, I won't say a member they agree, but members say proposal was if we get a further report, noise report and the highway report, we might consider this application and to think about it, to approve or whatever, yeah. But on that reason, we deferred this application last time, yeah. Now, since that, I know this area is now priority employment area under new local plan which we passed last month, end of last month. But it's a priority employment, not a employment, yeah, as one of the agents have said. But I do not think, Chair, this proposed scheme is a departure from the priority employment area, as the scheme has some employment in ground floor, 8 light industrial units being proposed, and residential, and I think under the priority area, residential can be acceptable in priority employment area if land adjoining is not harmed. There won't be harm to the land, yeah? I read the report, Lindsay also, which is applicant, at their heyday employ between 8 and 10 staff. But during the last 26 years, I've been said by the agent as well, business became less and less viable, yeah? Lindsay, the applicant, Lindsay, tried to attract other business to increase the occupancy of the building, but none were able to operate a viable business and they left. I'm sure the proposed residential development with light industrial unit will enable Lindsay Viable to keep the business within the area. They might increase the more employment there if we get there. Mill is very old and doesn't seem practical for modern industrial employment. Yeah, need to be changed, need to be convert the mill then. If we convert the mill, then we can save the mill. Yeah. Environment health do not object and happy with the scheme submitted noise report. And the highways as well, they had some concern. Now they got an updated report this morning. We were given the updated paper by the officer, and the highways are quite happy. For the sake of this historic mill, forget about the employment priority. It's a priority. It's a business already there. We don't want to lose any business there. So think about that to approve this application. Thank you, Chair.
That's a hard act to follow. It's more or less what I was going to say as well. I fear that if we don't move with the times, I mean, I don't think people want large upstairs business spaces anymore. They're not practical. I would rather that the mill building remained and be beautified and occupied than started to fall down, which is what's happened to various other mills in the valley. Are we allowed to ask? We're told it's going to be 42 low-cost residential units. What is that? Are they going to be sold or rented, or is that not in our remit at all? Other than that, I support the scheme.
I'm going to let Councillor Holmwood here because he wishes to speak, and Councillor Ulla, if he does also. But then I'm going to bring in the officer to round up, because there is an important factor to this that I think you need to be aware of before we start to vote or move propositions.
I mean, yeah, same. I was going to agree with what's been said. I think my reading of it is that the report focuses on the policies and the principles, but I just feel maybe it's missed some of the realities, because, you know, like you say, when we're talking here about the importance in increasing manufacturing and the engineering sector, I'm just wondering how that building as it is provides what's necessary there. And I get what's been said about, yeah, you could flatten it and build something else, but, you know, it sounds like that's been looked at and isn't particularly viable. So I have a feeling that we might be here in 15 years with just an empty building, and I'm not sure that's achieved anything. Another point I was just going to add, I'm presuming the site across the road, which was rejected or refused, doesn't actually have a building on the site at the moment. And I think that's slightly different, because it's a question of saying, should we build a row of houses, or should we build a new manufacturing building? And I think that's two different sites. I'd much prefer to see the existing building maintained and kept, you know, for heritage purposes, etc., and in use. So I agree that I would personally agree with my colleagues and support the application.
Councillor. And then Councillor Sims, you still wish.
Sorry. Oh. No.
You, Councillor, you're first.
Sorry, we can read it down. Yeah. It's just a comment, really. I think the building itself is falling apart, and as James has said, are we going to be here not in 15 years' time, but in 24 months' time, looking at the same thing, trying to get something going there? And although I accept it goes against policy, I think we have to try and look at the bigger picture. Getting that site to where it needs to be is going to cost a huge amount of money. And I think that that level of investment in Mills Bridge or the surrounding area can only be a positive thing for communities. I'm also in fear that if it was not to happen, what would be the future of this site? Would it be like broken windows with boards on it, people parking their cars and causing antisocial behaviour? What would it be? Because, I mean, it takes a real investor to come and invest that level of money in Mills Bridge. I mean, I don't think that, you know, it's...
Councillor Sims.
Thank you, Chair. It's a difficult one, this, I think, for us as a team. To mix housing with industry, there's a conflict. And, you know, there could be complaints from the flats and what have you, but having looking at this, I just think that this was proposed as a wholly industrial site. I think that was the wrong decision, because when you look at it, the road infrastructure will not take modern industry transport into it. Will that industrial site ever fill up? And I think the answer is no. And you could only to look at it now. I mean, if I swore, I'd call it a tip. You know, it's all on that side there. It's not good. So you've got to look at it and say, well, what's going to be the best we can get out of this site now and in the future? And I think that this proposal could go some way to alleviating some of the problems, bringing back some life into Millsbridge probably. But the ward councillors may get telephone calls when they're all filled up with residents that somebody's drilling and banging, you know, late at night. But they'll have that to put up with. But, you know, I think on a whole this site was poorly designated really as an industrial site in this modern industrial world that we've got. And I think in hindsight, if it can be worded properly, I think that this should be given a trial to see how it goes, because we will have problems later on. I may not see it, but some of these younger members will. That site will have to have something done at it. Whether it's industrial or not, I wouldn't like to say, but my doubts are that it would be when the situation that it's in. And we have quite a few of these sort of sites, particularly in Millsbridge area, that we're going to have to deal with in the future. And this may be one proposal that helps us deal with some of those sites, Chair. Thank you.
What I'm proposing to do now is bring the officer in before I get a proposal, because I think it's only fair that you're here and don't say to me afterwards, well, if I'd have known he was going to say that, I would have voted differently. So here we go then, Matthias.
Thanks, Chair. Right. I can hear the sense of the room. I understand the general feel is that there is support for the use. That's fine. There's a procedural matter that Teresa and Deborah will bring to your attention around the decision-making process, if you're minded to go with it. All I want to say, I'll keep it brief, you've got an up-to-date local plan, you've got evidence behind it. Those priority employment areas are more important now than they were when we lodged the plan, because you do not have the release of greenfield sites to make up the need for the employments. You also have an evidence base that says all those priority employment areas are viable, are deliverable, are usable, and you could have the applicant produce evidence to the contrary, which you can attach weight to as another material planning consideration. But you do need to focus on the starting point for decisions is, what does the plan tell you? That's up to date, that's robust. Every time you seek to depart from it, it does challenge the plan in some way. However, it isn't like crossing the Rubicon, because every application is on its own merits. So if you're minded to accept that the development could happen, although it is a departure, there is a procedural matter that perhaps we can take you through, if that's right. Deborah, Teresa? Thank you, Chair. Thanks for your time.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The application as it stands at the moment, if members are mindful to support it, would represent a departure from the local plan, the adopted local plan as it now stands, and it's not been advertised as such. Secondly, in accordance with the delegation agreements, applications which form a departure from the local plan are to be determined by strategic committee and not by the subcommittee. So if members of the subcommittee are supportive of this, and that is the resolution of this committee, that would have to be sent up as the recommendation of the subcommittee to the strategic committee as the determining body. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Sokol then and Councillor Paul. It's not the same question. Can you?
Can I say? When we used to have an old highway planning committee, that time there was some criteria or condition. If there is an application in Huddersfield Planning Committee is very controversial or the big application, they always refer to that Planning Highway Committee for their decision. But when we set up this strategic planning committee, that rule was not there. No, we haven't done any planning committee refer to the strategic planning committee since it's been set up. I think we are setting up a new precedent. Yeah, I don't agree with that.
I'm looking at the applications which are to be referred to the strategic committee here from the Constitution, and it says specifically that the determination of planning applications for full or outline permission which are specifically reserved to the strategic committee are, and there's a list, and the first on the list is planning applications where the proposed decision will be contrary to any saved policy of the local development. It refers to the unitary development plan, but it's now the local plan. So in this scenario, the committee are minded to approve, or the recommendation is to approve, which constitutes a departure. So, first of all, it would would have to be re-advertised publicly as a departure. We have to do the consultation, the advertising again as a departure with that recommendation, and because of that, it will be determined by the strategic committee.
In other words, Councillor Sokol, what you said is, I'm afraid, it's the past, and it's history. We're now working under the new regulation, and that's what we've got to adhere to that. The back.
As I didn't vote for the local plan, I'd like to move this for approval. Of course, and I know now that it will pass to the strategic committee, so I move for approval of this. Well, I'm moving for approval, and depending on whether people vote with me or I'll get a seconder. Approval of this planning application.
Against the officer's recommendation?
Yes.
So
is that seconded? More formally, yes, Councillor Sims has seconded that. Right. All those in favour, please show. Against?
Right, so the decision of this committee is that they are minded to approve this application for the reasons the opposite of the officer recommendation, and as a consequence it will be re-advertised as a departure and sent to the strategic committee for determination.
Right, now we move on to page 105. So Deborah will take this. Right. Can I have your attention then? We'll get this out of the way, then you can... He's already put his coat on as shake, and he's still trying to hold us up. Come on. Look in.
No. This is an item at the end of the agenda, and we're seeking your committee's endorsement or authority to enter into a deed of variation. Normally, deeds of variation don't come to the committee because it's dealt with in legal services. But in this case, we want to do two things. We want to seek authority for the committee to confirm the duration of the affordable housing arrangements to align the period to 20 years and to enable the provision of affordable housing by a new provider. That's cutting to the chase. The background to it is that the site at Upper Thong has a scheme of 15 affordable houses which are rent to buy, and the current management agreement allows the owner, who are QSH, to transfer to a new provider. That would just happen normally without coming back to committee. But in this case, when the QSH of the providers made when they were proposing the affordable housing, the presentation given to the planning subcommittee by a representative of QSH to outline the scheme and its operation made no reference to the duration of the scheme, and consequently the affordable housing scheme as secured in the 106 is not bound by any limitations. The reason that this was not picked up at the time is because it's a rent-to-buy scheme, and the current management arrangement gives the tenants 5 years in which they can purchase the properties. So it was assumed that as a rent-to-buy scheme, people would buy the property. However, now the development is going to be transferred to a new provider. They, of course, want to know what the period of management is. And this is why we're bringing it back to the committee, because the management by K&H, Kirklees Neighbourhood Housing, lasts for 20 years. And so we want the deed of variation to marry the two together. So it's clarity on the period of the management arrangements, and to name the new provider from KSH to PACE, or, well, yeah, at the moment. Yeah, and the other point is that if at the end of the 20-year period there may be a sitting tenant who is still in the property, one of the properties, or more than one sitting tenant, and so we want the council has agreed or given an intention to acquire the property to go into the affordable housing stock, and K&H can continue with the management.
Councillor Sims.
It's a shame our legal didn't pick this up in the first place, because it was quite a clever idea, you know. This contractor at times has reneged on his affordable housing, and I think it was quite a clever way. I'm glad we have picked it up, to be honest, and I support the recommendation. There's no point in having affordable housing, and after 5 years, we've had a long time, they can be sold on the open market for a profit, and that's not the idea of affordable housing. So I agree with this new agreement being put in place. If you can do it, I don't know what the legal aspirations are of the other side, but I hope you can.
No, we can do it, and had it not been this alignment, it would have been done, but we need to bring it to the committee.
Chairman. Happy to second Ken's recommendation.
All those in favour, please show. Concludes the meeting. Thank you.